cape.
Hey everybody, Doug here from 2+ Stuff, and I am extremely excited about the upcoming release of Age of Sigmar Warcry. Now, if you've been living under a rock and haven't heard about Warcry, first of all, congratulations on your low property taxes, but secondly, there's a lot to catch up on. Warcry is a skirmish level game that includes, as we know of now, they're releasing 6 Chaos Warbands, I believe 2 more to come afterwards, as well as some existing armies getting a chance to play at that level. Games Workshop actually launched a new website dedicated strictly for Warcry. It's ageofsigmar.com/Warcry, and you can go there and you can see all the various warbands and factions and everything like that you will ever need. So all the information we're referencing comes from there, but the factions we have are 6 new ones, so they're completely new. We'll talk about them in a bit. And then I believe 3 from the other Grand Alliances, so 3 from Order, that is Stormcast, Daughters of Cain, Deepkin. Death is Nighthaunt, Legions of Nagash, and Flesh Eater Courts, and Destruction is Gloomspite Gits, Ironjaws, and Bone Splitters. Now, I was supposed to receive my advanced copy for being a content creator and make how-to videos and that kind of stuff last week. And unfortunately, because we live in the Pacific Northwest, shipping is always a constant issue. It always has been since GW was kind enough to send me stuff, and mine was delayed. And so hopefully I'm receiving it the day you see this video. Now, despite how soul-crushing that was, it's alright, it's fine, I'm over it. But basically, I'm going to go ahead and take this time to talk about what is coming for Warcry, why I'm excited about this game in a new way. It's everything I wanted Skirmish to be, and I'm going to tell you why you want to join in on it too. One of the most important things about Warcry, particularly for me creating content for it, is its physical size. That is to say, it's a 22 by 30 inch board, I believe. Same size as Kill Team, which makes it very manageable. I can set it up on a 4x4 table, which is ample room in this office. The 6x4 gets really tight, really snug, if you will, and but it gives me a chance to do a lot of other things like using green screens, because now I have the room to hang them up and that kind of stuff. So I can do all kinds of fun content for it. We'll talk about it when we get down to the rules section, but it's also blisteringly fast. I've seen it played with a demo set at my local GW, and we'll talk about why that is, but it is an incredibly aggressive game. Things die quickly, and it favors the bold. The fact that it can be done really, really fast and in a very tightly contained area that's full of dense terrain is a home run. And also, if you look up here on the wall, you see that little Warhammer Underworlds green case. They released that when they came out with, well, it's still for sale, Underworlds, as a way to transport your deck, the tokens, and your minis. And so they're doing that again. These cases are kind of annoying when it comes to large armies, but for these kinds of games like Kill Team, I have one of those things for Kill Team as well, they're actually perfect. You can realistically contain an entire army in something like that it can fit in some glove boxes, and I love it. As someone who's getting burnt out on full 2,000 point games, I haven't played one in a long time. I have my Stormcast all painted ready to go, just haven't wanted to. It's a little bit daunting to think I have to block out 4 hours to get a game in, and I understand that's just not for everyone. I'm just tired of moving around the books and all the models and everything like that. So I've been looking a lot into Warhammer Underworlds and Kill Team, and this just fits right into that slot as well. Now, as I said before, let's talk about those models. As I mentioned, you get 2 factions in the core set of the game. You get the Iron Golems and the Untamed Beasts, and they are both pretty stunning. Obviously everything is up to your personal tastes, but here on their website, you can go through and see every single model there is. Some of them can be built into 2 different ways. For example, the Signifier, right? You can swap his hands out, this totem out for a hammer, and he becomes the Perfector, which is just really, really cool. There are some minor weapon options, things like that. For the most part, this is kind of, each unit has a class that they fit into, and so they kind of rein it in. The modeling opportunities, you can model whatever you want, but that doesn't represent different weapons. There's not as much weapon variety. That being said, there's tons of detail in these figures, and the things you can do with them are pretty darn cool. So that's the Iron Golems. We'll look at the Untamed Beasts, and we have sort of a, Conan the Barbarian Beastman looking thing here, and I absolutely love them. And I'm not going to review every single warband, but I want to put across here in this section, as I point out a few things, is that this is important as a Chaos release, because one thing, they've already confirmed it and are already updating it. that every single one of these warbands will have rules for Age of Sigmar proper, and they do have the Slaves to Darkness keyword with no devotion. And that is a very interesting thing, because now Slaves to Darkness has a whole bunch of unit options. I'm not saying they're particularly amazing in the game, but they can be really, really cool. Because they are generic in Age of Sigmar, and I'll actually pull up one of the War Scrolls here. So here's an example from the Cypher Lords, one of the newer warbands. Kind of has sort of almost a Japanese influence type thing. They're from Hysh, Realm of Light, and they're very interesting. So a typical Age of Sigmar profile. They're not vastly different from unit to unit. You have this one has a ranged weapons where they're throwing stars, and then also have exotic blades, which kind of accounts for all of them. Any weapon option they have is kind of lumped in like this, and so this makes them very usable in Age of Sigmar. As you can see, the unit size down here goes from 8, which is a single box, to 32, which would of course be 4 boxes, and it's 70 points for each one of those. So it's very, very interesting how they fit into it. They do set up the rules in terms of having to have a hero for every 8 models, at the Thrall Master, so they call them, just so that it makes sense when you're building your models. And there's just some tiny rules. So what I like about this is that it gives Chaos a whole bunch of new options in Age of Sigmar, but at the same time, more importantly than that, it gives us different ideas of what Chaos is like in the lore. We know that all of the factions fighting for the power of the mortal realms come from different places, right? They've always said, for example, like Fire Slayers are predominantly in Akshi, the Keratin Overlords are in Chaman, that kind of stuff, but the identity of how cultures that spread across multiple realms really hasn't been very well represented, meaning how the idea of this army looks different when it's in Gur versus this army looks different when it's in Olgu, right? That's just the realms affect them, but we haven't seen that really brought to the forefront with models. Everything's been kind of the same, and then you can theme it if you want from various places, but this is leaning hard into the idea that different realms produce different kinds of warriors, right? You have the Corvus Cabal from the realm of Ulgu Shadow. You have the Iron Golems from Chaman, lots of mineral heavy things. They're physically mighty. You have the Untamed Beasts from Gur. You know, I mean, they represent their factions so well. So not only are we getting different depictions of how Chaos factions worship Chaos Undivided, they see Chaos as this mystical force in various ways from their lore, we'll get into that, but also they represent their realms in very interesting ways. And that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited for saying, okay, rather than just building a Stormcast army, and I might do different bases and that kind of stuff to theme it from somewhere, but when you give me an army that can, like, in the truest sense, be from a place and look like a resident of that place, it just adds so much more flavor. Now, going back to that page, of course, there are the 6 Chaos factions. Here's the thing, people are like, but where is this cave? And I have no doubt that there will be more Chaos factions and more factions in general added later on. But launching a game where they've, theoretically balanced was a 6, 9, 12, 15 armies is pretty rad. You know what I mean? So it's worth the wait, I'm sure. So beyond the Chaos, there are, of course, like I said, 3 armies from each other Grand Alliance. And so we're going to dive kind of a little bit into those because there's some unique things here. One thing I love is that most of these factions lean heavily into multi-kits. And that is to say, if we look at the Daughters of Cain one, the Canary kit makes the Heartrenders and the Life Takers. Their Snake Lady kit makes the Blood Sisters and Blood Stalkers, and the Witch Elf makes Sisters of Slaughter. Not all of them are like that. For example, Death, if you're Necromancer, Graveguard, and Skeleton Warrior, those kits make nothing except those particular models, but some of them lean hard. And what this really, when I say lean hard into the multi-kit thing, the reason that's important is because if you are someone who's always wanted to try a certain army, and you're not super set on buying the entire thing, for example, I am never going to play Daughters of Cain as its own army. It's a Horde army. The basic kit for the girls costs $60 for Witch Elves. No thank you. But I am excited about the opportunity of buying 3 kits and having just about everything I would ever need to play Warcry. Those kits being the Witch Elf kit, the Blood Sisters, and the Canary. And so I believe you get 5 Canary in a box, building 2 of one, 3 of the other. Same for the Bloodstalkers. You know, when you buy a multi-kit and you can make multiple things out of it, all of a sudden the value of that kit dramatically increases because it's more things that you need for Warcry. Now, no faction, if we're talking value, rides that harder than the Savage Aura kit. If you have never looked at this kit, I don't blame you. It's an army that not many people have looked at. The Savage Aura kit, now I'll actually bring it up here. In the Savage Aura kit box, you get the ability to build 20 models. Now that's kind of deceptive. The reason is, if you look at that Warcry page, you have the Savage Auric basic dude, which is the one you see in this picture. Just a basic guy. He has a weapon in one hand, could be a spear or a sword, and he has a shield in the other. You could build a Savage Auric Moorboy, which is the more elite version. They forego all kinds of defense, so they have 2 weapons. Or you could build the Arrow Boy, which is of course the bow and arrow variant. Or if you take 2 of those and put them together, you can build the Big Stabba, which is this guy. And he is looking pretty fine. Now, why is that important? Well, that means from one box for $50, $8 if you buy the cards, like the ability cards for them to give them all the rules they need for Warcry, you have an entire army, because with that one box you are able to build 2 Big Stabbas, and then you can mix up the other 16 bodies that you have to be Moorboys, Savage Orcs, or Arrow Boys, which is an incredible value. It's for the idea of getting into a faction for $58 is phenomenal. Now, one of the other noticeable armies that gets a lot of mileage from doing multi-kits and that kind of stuff, and this kind of dovetails into my next point regarding models for Warcry, and what I'm excited about is the Gloomspite Gits. Now, it's really easy to look at this and say, Doug, what are you talking about? These are, again, several kits. Of course, from this box you have the Squig Hopper kit, which makes the Boingrot Bounder option, that kind of stuff. You have the basic Grot, which is the Stabba and the Shuda, and the Squig Herder, and the Squig, which come in like the alone by itself Squig box. Well, friends, I will tell you why I'm not crazy, because this exists. This is the Warhammer Underworld's Night Vault set for Zarbag's Gits. And I actually do play Warhammer Underworld, so I got a ton of value out of this. I got the cards from this. But what's also important, and I'll throw the picture up here on the screen, is the models you get inside of it. Inside this kit are 3 Arrow Boys, 1 Stabba who's carrying a net, 1 Fanatic, which of course isn't in the game, but you can of course kit bash him to be something else, a Squig Herder, 2 Squigs by themselves, as well as a hero that you can of course put a spear tip on the end of his weapon or something like that and make him unique. So don't overlook the fact that Warhammer Underworld's warbands come with a lot of options, and more important than the model options, right? That's kind of an all over the place set of models, is that they come with alternate sculpts. The Stabbas the Shudas that you get in here, the little bow and arrow guys, are unlike any of the models you can ever build from the basic Gloomspite Gits Night Goblin kit. And when you're playing something like a campaign style game where characters can level up and gain artifacts and that kind of stuff, having your models be unique and named and that kind of thing when there's only like 13 of them maybe on the board is going to be paramount. So when I was at GW today placing my pre-order for more stuff for Warcry, I grabbed these guys and a box of these Squig Hoppers so I can really, this is an entire army, boom, right here. Now you could cheapen it up. I do believe they sell the Zarbag's Gits without the Shadespire cards, which I think is like $5 cheaper, but since I play that game I pitched in the extra 5. And this I'm going to wait to hold off and build until I know what I really want. So not only are the existing factions leaning heavily into multi-kits that really do a lot for building, customizing, and that kind of stuff, but also you can bring in units from other GW properties to kind of make them more unique. A warband of Gloomspite Gits that uses Zarbag's Gits in it will visually look more unique than one who just sticks with the basic models. Nothing wrong with that, but I like the more original, more unique sculpts that you get when you have such a small little skirmish game. And it's not just Zarbag's Gits that can do this, bring alternate sculpts into the game. You also have, for the Stormcast Eternals, they rely on almost exclusively Vanguard models, and for that you have the Far Striders from Warhammer Underworld's Shadespire, which have unique sculpts of them standing in various poses, and the leader has a really cool looking bird laying across his arm. Another one that might be interesting, and I'll have to wait to see how I feel about it, is the Godsworn Hunt. That's an interesting one because there is no Chaos Warband directly for them, but they could could be used to sub in alternate sculpts for something like the Untamed Beasts, which is the set that you get in the core set. Next to them also are Iron Skull's Boys, which is the Iron Jaws army, and this is one if you want to play Iron Jaws in in Warcry. I'm gonna get my names all mixed up. I really do suggest you take a look at this one simply because the basic Ardboy kit is very, very static. Their poses are pretty samey, and so you could have a lot of Ardboys that look very, very similar and very, very boring. But if you take a look at the leader, Iron Skull himself, he is an incredible Ardboy design, and the other guys with him, they just stand differently in different poses. So that's going to be an important one. In addition to that, there is the Night Haunt army. The one that comes in the 2-player core set for Night Vault right now have some fantastic alternate sculpts for things like Hex Wraiths. Sorry, I had a brain fart there for a second. Hex Wraiths, as well as some other kits and kind of bits and bobs you can modify to be other stuff. Who I think is the absolute knockdown drag out winner from this whole thing is the Warhammer Underworlds set of Sepulchral Guard. Now, if you don't know this is the Skeleton Warriors, and I'm going to show you 2 images, and I want you to tell me which one seems more interesting. The first image is of the basic Skeleton Warriors kit. It's the one you see all over the tournament tables because that's what Legions of Nagash does well. Big hordes of these very straight standing up, got their little spear in their hand warriors, and I like them. They're good models, but then if you compare that over to the Sepulchral Guard kit, if you're talking something that only requires 10 to 13 models max, at the high end of things, having these guys look different and dynamic individually will go a long way. So if you were to take the Sepulchral Guard kit, throw in, however many more guys from the basic Skeleton Warrior kit, I think that would look really sharp. So the point of all that was to say that in terms of modeling opportunities, this is a very exciting game where not only am I drawing in different multi-kits and getting a lot more value from them because I can, build 2 of this thing, 3 of this other thing, and have, a more complete kind of diverse warband internally from one box. Like I said, Savage Orcs exemplify that. But also the fact that I can bring in things from other, not properties because it's all Games Workshop, but other games that are kind of standalone-ish, and then make them work for this to give me unique sculpts. And lastly, I want to talk about the rules for a bit. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here telling you about what interests me and why you can look forward to some of the cool stuff coming up on the channel. This weekend, I played a total of, I believe, 3 games of Kill Team, and I had an absolute blast. If you don't know, Kill Team is like, Warcry for 40k kind of thing. And here's the deal with Kill Team. I like it until modifiers come in, and by that I mean there's a lot of things that are like -1s to hits, whether you're outside half range of their weapon or they're hidden behind something. There's a few other ways to get minuses, that kind of stuff. What I can say is I don't like it when I keep rolling dice and nothing happens. In fact, it's very easy, and it happened to me twice this weekend, where we got into a position where we had multiple turns where nothing happened, and that is frustrating for me as a player. It's the opposite of fun. Warcry, there's not nearly as many modifiers. And then part of that is because it's focused on melee combat rather than ranged. And so there's just a lot more running up. Model placement's going to be colossal in this, and smashing and kind of picking your attacks and that kind of stuff. It is a brutal game in the sense of, if you don't know, in Kill Team, everyone has armor, whether it's a 6-up or whatever, it doesn't matter. Everyone gets a little bit of a save, and then the modifiers kind of stack on top of that. Well, in Warcry, there isn't an armor save. There you just compare the strength of the attack to the toughness of the person they're trying to hurt, and if it's a success, boom, that's it. You just get hurt. It makes it brutally fast, first of all. The way they balance that out is because they kind of change the way wounding works by in Kill Team, a model might still just have 1 wound, whereas in Warcry, they could have 10 to 30, something like that. They can be really beefy. So I absolutely love how that works. I mean, it makes it very quick, very simple, very easy to teach, but here's the thing, also very easy to expand upon. You could introduce mechanics later on that give you saves and that kind of stuff, but it's nice that initially it is a brutally quick and easy game. Next thing that I'm excited for is the idea of height. And here's the thing, I know in Kill Team and also in Necromunda that they do have rules for elevation, right? Jumping down from a platform and falling and that kind of stuff. But I don't feel like it uses it to its full advantage, meaning how many attacks really, like moving models, is their purpose. Well, we've already seen from the abilities cards and things like that leaked from Warcry that pulling people off of a second floor is going to be important. Like using height as a mechanic in the game is going to be a fundamental strategy for some of the armies. The Corvus Cabal, which is the faction that I'm most interested in from the new stuff, can use height to jump onto their prey and kind of like pounce on them like birds. And while that's not necessarily a new thing, it existed in Mordheim and, like I said, in Necromunda, the fact that they brought it back when they made this entire new game system and built it from the ground up around those kinds of ideas of brutal quickness and then models dying off and using a range of like three-dimensional, terrain and that kind of stuff to make that happen is a lot of fun. So I'm sold. Today, even though I didn't get my advanced copy, I went to my local GW, I read through the rules in their completion, had some chats, and I rolled a few dice just kind of acting out a combat phase with another guy, and I'm very much sold. I think the real clincher is going to be what the faction abilities, like the abilities card that you can use as a commander, what those are going to be for each of the new and existing factions. That's the real decider of where synergy comes in. For example, with these Gloomspite Gits dudes, I would love an ability that allows them to basically get better at attacking if there's more than 2 or more models are fighting the same target. If they gang up on a guy and then stab him at the same time, all of a sudden their attacks do a lot more. I think those kinds of abilities that add the flavor to an army are going to go a long way. Now, what can you expect from the channel? Well, here's the thing. I'm going to throw it out there. I am going all in on Warcry, and I'm going to treat it like I treated Age of Sigmar. I'm still going to keep playing Warhammer Underworlds, and I'm going to chat about Kill Team every once in a while. Of course, play Age of Sigmar with all the lore videos that you guys could ever hope for. But Warcry is something that I have wanted for quite a while. When I read the rulebook, I've seen it played out, and I'm really excited in a way that I can't articulate. I've been so burnt out in large games recently that this is just a breath of fresh air for me. What you can expect are a few things. One, top of the thing I want to put out there is lore content. There will be lore videos around all the various factions that come out. I'll even pick lore videos for something like, Gloomspite Gits I have right here. That's why it's in arm reach. So like, why does this warband want to fight in Warhammer Underworld? Let's talk about those units, that kind of stuff for people who are interested in Warcry, but maybe not in Age of Sigmar proper. Give them some lore content as well. And then in addition to that, I want to talk about doing narrative battle reports. Now, one of my patrons, Kenzie, I'll name drop, has been infinitely patient with me as I struggle to do another narrative battle report. I wanted to do one that's a 2K game, kind of in the style of that one battle report I threw up, which had amazing positivity, but it's so hard for me to do in my physical space. The limitations here, they're real, and so I have to kind of work around with friends and their schedules to make that happen, and it's been slow going, to be honest with you, but we're working on it. But the thing is that because of the way Warcry fits into my home, literally, it can be cranked out in an afternoon. I can get an entire battle report done. The games are fast, brutal, and that means I can actually realistically, instead of the 2K game that I was planning to do, which would take multiple days of editing to do because I want to do heavy edits, for lightning effects and transitions and stuff, I can do that same thing for a Warcry game in a day. I already have it planned out, mapped out, everything like that. So that is lore content, that is narrative gaming, and then in addition to that, I want to do faction reviews, kind of like the Start Collecting Box reviews I do for every single faction, where, for example, if we do the Gloomspite Git cards, I ordered them, so I'll have the Gloomspite Git cards, and we'll talk about the abilities, where you can start, the effectiveness of each of the units, and some cool ways to add flavor to them. So, for example, instead of buying the Stabas and the Shootas kit, you can buy Zarbag's Gits and make some cool stuff from there. Kind of exploring the different model opportunities that exist at the time of recording, and to get you with a full army as cheap as possible, but as effective as possible. So doing that for each of the existing factions, and then of course the new Chaos ones, it's going to be a lot of fun. So friends, I hope you're excited. Like I said, hopefully today I'll be getting my copy and you'll be seeing content about it throughout the week. I'm very excited to hang out with all of you and get to showcase this and experiment with it and do a lot of fun content. Let me know what you would like to see from this in terms of, narrative gaming, competitive, painting tutorials, whatever you would like to see. Go ahead and leave in the comments down below, and that'll happen because I'm very, very excited and highly motivated about Warcry. So thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Happy wargaming.